No, it is not your imagination. It actually costs 28% more than it did 4 years ago to order your favorites from Starbucks or Panera. Last time we grabbed Starbucks as a family on vacation, it was over $50. Which is why generally these days when I get a craving for some of my fall favorites like soups from Panera or Olive Garden, I opt for copycat recipes instead. Today I'm sharing my top 5 favorite recipes from Cinnabon, Panera, Starbucks, and more because you deserve a treat without breaking the bank.
For this one we're making a mall classic, or for me at least it was always the mall. We're making Cinnabon cinnamon rolls at home. So you want to heat up a cup of milk just to like warm, you want warm milk. And then we're gonna add in, you can either do like 1 packet of active dry yeast, or I just bought these and I leave them in my freezer. And that way the yeast stays super fresh. And so on the package, it actually says that you use 2 1/4 teaspoons to make 1 package. So I've got 2 and about 1/4 here. We're just gonna mix this together. We're gonna let it sit for a few minutes until it gets frothy. The great things about these is like, yes, we're going through work, it takes time, but we're gonna make 16 cinnamon buns, which is just wild. This is also gonna be perfect for like the holiday time because you can make these ahead for Christmas morning or even Thanksgiving morning because you don't wanna like cook, you don't be cooking too much, so you can make them the day ahead and then just heat them up. I don't even know how much a Cinnabon is these days. I used to get one like and split one with my mom at the mall when we went back to school shopping. That's kind of my memory of it. But yeah, we're getting 16 of them for like pennies on the dollar. So yes, you're making them, but they're also gonna freeze well and they're just gonna be so special. So just while that's frothing up, you're gonna kind of wait till the top of it froths, and I can already see it putting some bubbles on top, so that's amazing. I'm putting a 1/2 cup of sugar into the bottom of my stand mixer, 1/3 cup of melted butter, got 2 eggs, a teaspoon of salt. Look at this bubbly, bubbly mixture. This is awesome. So you want it to be pretty much dissolved, and you're gonna start to get some bubbles on the top. So initially I tried to use the bread paddle to like mix this up, but it wasn't really working. But I know it'll work a lot better once I add in the dry ingredients, the flour. So I'm just gonna kind of mix this as much as I can with my spatula. It's just that there's like a lot of sugar on the bottom. I wanna make sure that it's all evenly mixed. But the key here is that it gets mixed, and you could definitely just start off with a paddle attachment and then add the dough hook, but I wanted to try it with the dough hook, and that's not gonna work, but this should be fine anyway. So I'm gonna put 4 to 4.5 cups of flour into the bowl while the dough hook is going, and we wanna keep kneading it until it becomes smooth and elastic. So at first it's gonna be sticky, but once it kneads long enough, it's gonna end up being like this smooth ball. And it's 4 to 4.5 cups because it's gonna depend on, I think it's like your elevation and all these things. You just wanna make sure that it becomes that elastic ball and it's not too sticky. You see how it's pretty smooth and soft now? At this point, it's not sticky. So that means we're pretty much there. I'm just gonna take this out and put it into an oiled bowl. And we're gonna give it an hour to rise or double. So if you're in a colder environment, like my house is usually pretty cold, you may want to let it go a little bit longer. Find the warmest place that you can. I'm gonna put mine right underneath my heater because it's only October, but it's still chilly in here. We're true New Englanders. We're not gonna turn the heat on yet, but I do have a pump. So we have like a mini split. So if it's air conditioning and heat, I did turn that on in the kitchen because it's chilly, but everywhere else we're just wearing sweatshirts. That's fine. Sometimes you do have to wait a little bit longer. Like this was probably like an hour and a half for me. And then you'll really know. Like when I pulled, I'm like, I really know this is doubled. Before I was like, when I looked at it after an hour, I'm like, it's just not quite there yet. So you really want to see it double. You want to give it that time. The bowl is actually warm, so like also you kind of know then. So we're just gonna break this in half. I do have like a pastry, I don't know what this is called. Bread knife, that's not it. So you're gonna try and roll this out into like a long piece. Figure out how to get this to go.
This is definitely giving me some like Pac-Man vibes, but I did just want to show you this part where I like fully rolled the thing out because I just wanted to show you that, you know, we're not all perfect. You're not going to be able to, you know, make the dough perfect. Maybe you will, maybe you're like so much better than me. But you can still make delicious things even if it doesn't look amazing while you're doing it.
Ideally, we're going to get 8 cinnamon rolls out of this, so that is the hope. Why did I do this so funny? It's okay. It's okay. All right, so you want to take this and rub about half the butter onto it.
And while the dough was rising, I just made a mixture of 3/4 cup of brown sugar and 2 tablespoons of cinnamon, and you just want to mix that well, and that is basically the mixture that you're going to kind of evenly put over this dough. And in this case, you only want to use half of it because we are going to use the other half to make another 8 cinnamon rolls with the rest of the dough.
And then we're going to sprinkle about half of the filling inside of this. It smells amazing. I mean, butter, sugar, cinnamon. Doesn't get much better than that. And we're just gonna roll this the long way. And then you wanna get 8 out of this. I have some floss here, so ideally you wanna use dental floss. And you wanna use floss that's not flavored. So like I had some minty stuff upstairs, that's not gonna work. But this is just gonna cut it nice and easy for us without smushing it down. And it's easy to get 8 because you can just do half and then another half. And then another half. And you know, unless we're professional bakers here, it may not be perfect. You may not end up with all identically sized rolls, and that is okay because it's all about what it tastes like. And this is just for fun anyway, right? I think a lot of baking, like nobody forced you to do it, right? Obviously we want to get better at it over time, but don't be too hard on yourself. For example, I know that my one way down the end here, you know, not beautiful, a little bit smaller than the one on this side, and that's okay. You're gonna need 2 9x13 pans for this because each 9x13 is gonna hold 8 of them. And I'm just gonna grease down the pan. You can use spray or you can grease it yourself. I like the idea of kind of putting the side that's cut up. I'm gonna cover these, and then we're also going to let these sit for another hour. I'm gonna do the same thing with the rest of the dough. All right, these, I mean, I guess they're doubled. They're definitely getting puffy. They're definitely puffy. So I have preheated the oven to 350 degrees and I'm gonna bake them for 30 minutes. So the frosting is really easy. We're just gonna make this while they cook. It depends on when you wanna eat them. I'm not gonna put the frosting on right away. I'd like to wait till it cools down a little bit because that way it doesn't just slide off. If you put it on super hot cinnamon rolls, it's just gonna slide off everywhere. So you need a half a cup of softened butter, room temperature butter, which is actually just 1 stick. 4 ounces of cream cheese, and this is room temperature cream cheese, so it's nice and softened. You need a half a teaspoon of vanilla extract, literally like a pinch of salt, 1/8 teaspoon. Salt really does do wonders for stuff like this. I'm gonna do a 1.5 cups of confectioner sugar. Yes, you heard that right, a lot. And you just want to mix it well until it's smooth. Plug it in. Then mix it well until it's smooth. So these puffed up quite nicely. Oh my gosh, so delicious looking. This was about 23 minutes, so you know, it depends. You could probably go a little bit longer if you wanted to. I don't want to. I like them like this. And
And then I just waited for them to cool slightly, and I frosted the ones that we were going to eat. So there was obviously 16 of these here, which my family was not all going to eat at once. So I like to separate the extra frosting and just leave it off until we're ready to heat them up and eat them. So we just had some right here, right now. They were amazing. You'll see in a second here, I kind of like took a piece off, and you can see how delicious and how well that bread cooked up. Or, I mean, it's cinnamon roll, right? But the frosting is 100% Cinnabon frosting, and these were really incredible. For this one, we're gonna make a copycat Panera bread, broccoli, and cheddar cheese soup. We're gonna start with a half a cup of chopped onion, 1 cup of finely chopped carrots, 4 cups of finely chopped broccoli florets, and 2 cloves of minced garlic. You can also hear in the background, I have some bacon going because I'm gonna put bacon crumbles on top. It's not really a Panera thing, but it's a me thing. So if you have bacon, cook it up. You can always also use the Walmart or Costco bacon bits, or even just the sprinkle ones. In a medium pot, I've melted a 1/4 cup of butter, which is I think 4 tablespoons. I'm just gonna add the chopped onion and garlic and cook for like 6 to 8 minutes, just until it's tender and like translucent. Then you wanna stir in the broccoli, carrot, 3 cups of chicken stock, 2 cups of half and half. And to that, I'm just gonna add a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 2 bay leaves, a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. And we're just gonna bring this up to a boil. Just turn it down a little bit and like put it at a simmer. And then once those vegetables are tender, that's gonna be like 10 minutes or so, we're gonna mix in a 1/4 cup of cornstarch until the water is smooth. So you just wanna like stir it into the soup, make sure there's no lumps or anything like that. We're gonna bring that up to a boil and cook until it's kind of thickened. At this point, you wanna remove those bay leaves, and then you can stir in 2.5 cups of shredded cheddar cheese. I happen to have white cheddar. I think you could also use like yellow cheddar. You could really use whatever type of cheese you have or want to use. I think it would even taste good like with some Swiss or Gruyere. So whatever cheese you have on hand, I think you can still make this. I mean, it's not gonna be exactly Panera copycat at that point, but I think you can make it work. I'm just gonna serve this in bread bowls. So I got these little bread bowls at the bakery section in my store. They're $1.99 each, so I feel like that's kind of expensive for a dinner. I was kind of splurging, so I was like, oh, it fit in my budget, and I thought it'd be cute and fun to have. But you totally don't need to do that. You can just serve it with some like hunks of bread on the side, even like oyster crackers or something like that. And this makes a magnificent dinner. It tastes just like Panera. It is so good.
One of my son's favorite thing in the fall is pumpkin flavored items, including the pumpkin bread from Starbucks. I decided I'm going to make this at home. You just want to start with 1 15-ounce can of solid packed pumpkin, not the pumpkin pie mix, just the 100% pumpkin. Then to that, you add 1 cup of honey, 3/4 of a cup of canola oil or vegetable oil, and 2/3 a cup of water. Then you want to crack in 4 large eggs and 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla extract, which I added in later because sometimes I do things in the wrong order. And then you just want to whisk everything together until it is well blended. Oh, look, there's the vanilla. Now I also added in 2 cups of sugar and gave that a stir. Now, I am not a baker, like a great baker, so I don't necessarily follow the instructions like I probably should, and I'm sure that chefs from around the world hate this, but I added 2 teaspoons of baking soda right to my wet mixture and then mixed that in. Then I added 1.5 teaspoons of ground cinnamon, a teaspoon of ground nutmeg, a 1/2 teaspoon of ground ginger, and a teaspoon of salt, and then just gave that a good mix. Now, I know you're supposed to like add all of that to the flour mixture in a separate bowl and then mix that in, but I hate using extra dishes, so I always do it this way and it turns out fine. So, you know, whatever, to each their own, right? You can totally use a separate bowl and mix everything together if that's the way you want to do it and you find that it works out better. And then we also want to add in 3.5 cups of all-purpose flour, and that is kind of going to be the final step. Once you mix all this together, you have your pumpkin bread batter, and you just want to grease 2 9x5 loaf pans. Now I had one 2-pound loaf pan, and then I didn't have a second loaf pan. So I think my loaf pan was like a little bit bigger than was originally anticipated, but not big enough to make just like one huge thing of bread. So I actually made 12 muffins and one loaf of bread, which worked out great. And it was like really fun because like the kids are like, ooh, muffins, and my Dan and I are more like, oh, the bread. So, you know, whatever style that you like it in, just know that the muffins cook a lot faster than the bread will because they're just not as thick. You want to bake the bread at 350 degrees for 60 to 70 minutes. But for the muffins, those were done in about 25. So just make sure to start checking them around 20 minutes. And then even in this bread loaf, I think this was about 60 minutes in, I did check my bread. You can see it's golden and beautiful, and it does look really good, but it's still a little jiggly, like it's not all the way set in the middle. So I just cooked it for another 10 to 15 minutes. So you just want to have to check that as you're going along. And I forgot to mention, the original recipe has you add pepitas or pumpkin seeds right over the top. Now, my kid's not a huge fan of seeds, so I didn't add any, and I just didn't even have any on hand, so I don't want to go out and buy any. You can see we grabbed some muffins right away. They were so good. But it's so fun to have this fall bread and make something that is, oh my God, so much cheaper than Starbucks, and you have an entire loaf of it. So I'm a huge fan. It was so good, especially with a delicious cup of coffee.
For this one, we're making Olive Garden chicken and gnocchi soup. I know this is like super popular. We're gonna start by chopping 1 stalk of celery, a half a white onion. We're gonna dice that up, 2 teaspoons of minced garlic, and then a half a cup of shredded carrots. We're just gonna shred those up. And then you're also gonna need, I have about 2 cups of cooked chicken. I just cubed it up. You could use rotisserie chicken, you could use shredded chicken, you could do, I think you can even do canned chicken. I mean, it's not gonna be exactly like Olive Garden then, but canned chicken would suffice. And then heat about a tablespoon of olive oil in a large pot over medium heat. And once that's warm, we're gonna add in that celery, onions, garlic, and carrots. And we're gonna saute that until those onions are translucent. That usually takes me like 3 to 5 minutes. Then you wanna add in the chicken and 4 cups of chicken broth. I'm actually gonna use chicken bouillon, so whatever you have on hand I think will be just fine. Also gonna add about a teaspoon of salt, a little bit of pepper, a teaspoon of dried thyme, and then bring that to a boil. At this point, it's like almost done. We're gonna add in the gnocchi and boil for 3 minutes, and then bring it down to a simmer for 10 more minutes. And then once everything's simmered together, that's really gonna get the flavors in there. You wanna stir in 2 cups of half and half, and then a cup of spinach. And I'm actually gonna bring this over a friend's house. We're having a trunk or treat celebration, and it's gonna be a great potluck.
And it really was. Everyone was super happy with it. You can see that I transferred it to a crock pot, and that way I could keep it warm. And then right before we were ready to serve, I was able to add in that half and half and that fresh spinach so that it didn't like curdle or the spinach didn't wilt down too much. And it was absolutely delicious. Something that I've made, actually this was from last year when I originally filmed this. So I've made it a few times since then, and it's really become a family favorite. Next up, we're making the classic Wendys Chili.
So you just want to brown up your ground beef and then drain out any of the liquid. And then we're just going to add in a 1/4 cup of celery chopped. This is about 1 stalk, as they say. This is 3 small tomatoes diced and 1 small to medium onion. If you don't have fresh onion, you could always use onion powder, probably about a tablespoon. You want about 30 ounces of tomato sauce. So I have these 2 tomato sauce cans, and then unfortunately you don't want to cook up the cover. This always happens to me. Comment below if it happens to you too. I don't have any more of like the plain tomato sauce, so we are just going to use the local grocery store brand like pasta sauce, and it's just going to give a little extra flavor. And since I really need like 4 of these, we're just going to add. We need a container of diced green chilies. You need about 4 cans of kidney beans, or you could use half pinto beans. I cooked up my own kidney beans yesterday, so I have to kind of figure out what 4 cans of beans is. It seems like it's almost the whole pound. I'll have this much left in my container. So that was almost a pound of kidney beans. We're making a ton of chili because we are going over to a friend's house today. And this all worked out really perfect because they were actually talking about ordering out this evening.
And I was laughing because I'm doing this fast food at home video. And I was like thinking to myself, ain't nobody ordering out when they're friends with Niels and Maria. So happily, I was like, I'm gonna make Wendys chili for the whole crew. So I did put extra beef in this because I just had extra. This is about probably almost 3 pounds. We really only need like 2 pounds. So this is like extra thick. We are gonna also add 2 cups of water. And I love when I'm cooking with something like this and I have my like little container. I'm like, I don't even have to use any of my dishes. We're gonna throw this away after. And I know this is 8 ounces. And let us not forget about seasonings. So you need 2 teaspoons of salt, 2 teaspoons of cumin, 3 tablespoons of chili powder, and 1.5 teaspoons of black pepper. This is looking mighty hearty. The only thing I'm gonna do differently with this is just because I did add that extra ground beef. I wanna make sure that the seasonings are not off. So at the end, I am gonna check just to make sure that it's flavored enough, and we'll add more chili if we need to, more chili powder, or more salt if we need to, or more both. Another great thing about making chili for a party or for friends is that I am gonna get this started on the stove at my house. We're gonna let it kind of cook for about 45 minutes, and then we're gonna go over to my friend's house. I'm gonna put it back on the stove at their house. We're not gonna eat for another hour. And that way the chili is actually cooking for close to 2 hours by the time that we eat. And I didn't have to worry about, getting it all done ahead of time. I just put everything in the pot, and then it's actually freshly ready at the party, and it's not like cold, or we didn't have to reheat it or anything.
Everyone said this was exactly like Wendys chili, so it was perfect. Thanks so much for hanging out today. For more inspiration, click on this next video.
Happy.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
What about the ones with the pipe cleaners? What do you like about that?
See, I did this. I raised because I saw them rare.
You're gonna play with them later?
Yeah.
Why?
See, I'm playing the apple color.
Are you in apple coloring right now?
Yeah.